Hello everyone, Mark Barrett here from Riverview Portfolio Property Tax Advice, Expat Tax Advice under our marketing brand Bite Size Tax. Hello. An impromptu video. I'll say it's impromptu. There's no rehearsal going on for this, so if there's a little bit of I'm in an R-ing through it, please forgive me. I've been asked 3 times in 3 days, so it must be the season for it now, about should a person buy the assets from a company or do they buy the shares of a company? So that's what I'm going to address today. We are talking about a company purchase, it's assets and shares, rather than buying from sole trader businesses, etc. And I'm going to look at this from the purchaser's perspective. Obviously, if you're the seller, the vendor, then it's relevant to you too, but I'm going to use the language of the purchaser. And typically for our business, there's 2 reasons why we're asked this question. For our property clients, they might wish to be buying a property from somebody and it's in a company. So can they reduce their stamp duty by buying the company, so therefore paying reduced rates of stamp duty? And indeed, there is a saving there because the stamp duty on property is quite high. Stamp duty on shares is only 0.5%. So significant saving there. And the other client base were those who actually want the trading activity of a company. It adds to their activity level that they're doing and they want to acquire the company. Do they do a share purchase or an asset purchase? So the question is relevant to both clients. So bear with me. I'm going to try and capture both within this same video. First of all, let's get the distinguishing factors. With an asset purchase, you identify the company, you identify what's in the company that you want. It could be the property for the property client. It could be the name, the phone number, the URL, the email address, the assets of the business, the client base. And these are the assets of the business, and you can purchase the assets. The alternative to that, of course, is that you buy the shares of the company, which is simply you just pay the shareholders the money and buy the shares. With the asset purchase, you're buying it from the company. So I've said I'm going to look at it from the purchaser's perspective, but as you know, with any deal, you always have to look at the other party. So quickly, let's have a look at the seller, the vendor. Okay, he would love to sell you the shares. He would love to. Absolutely. Why? If a company sells the assets, then the company gets the profit, gets the income from the sale, and they have to pay tax, corporation tax on the profit from the asset sale. Good. So the company's got the profit, it's paid tax. Now the owner says, well, I don't want the company anymore. The company's a shell. I've sold all the assets out. I want the cash. Now they're going to close the business and they're going to pay tax to take the money out. So the seller has 2 advantages. An advantage of not paying 2 taxes, they're only going to pay tax once, because if you buy the shares, it is the seller, the shareholder, who simply says, I've sold my shares, I purchased them for whatever my share capital was, sold them for, I'll pay the tax on the difference. So you pay tax once. If you do a share sale, they'll pay tax twice if it's an asset sale. So understand now the vendor has their own motivation for asking you to do a share purchase. What's wrong with the share purchase? There is a problem. Well, it all sounds very good so far. Yeah, it's a property deal. You're going to pay reduced stamp duty. The vendor's going to be happier. You might be able to negotiate a better deal because you know the vendor is now going to pay less tax. So why don't you get a little cut of their good news? I understand all of that. But what's happening now is that the company has traded for however long. And anything that ever went wrong in that history still went wrong in that company. All that's happened is we've changed the name of the owner of the company. So the language that we use and the lawyers will use is that if you purchase the shares of a company, you've stepped into the shoes of the shareholder. It's the same shareholder, it's just a different name. So you can't say, oh, well, the old owner did that thing wrong, Mr. Taxman, Mr. Court, whatever. Don't blame me. That doesn't work. You've simply stepped into their shoes. You've done it. It's your problem. It's your responsibility. So think about that. All of those things that could have happened. You don't know that they have. They may not have done anything wrong. So how do you check? Well, you send off the accountants and you send people like us, and we do a lot of company purchases for clients. You send us to do a due diligence. We're going to dig into it, and we're going to look at the company and say, well, look, do we think there's anything wrong in the accounts? Do we think there's anything wrong in their tax activity? And that's very much like peeling an onion. For those of you that know me know I use a lot of analogous language. So another one, peeling an onion. So we will say to you, yeah, it's fine. Look, we've peeled off 2-3 layers of the onion now. Didn't find anything. That doesn't mean to say that there isn't a problem. And if we carry on peeling off layers, we'll find it. So you might well say, oh, well, yeah, go on, peel another layer off. So you spend some more money with the accountants. We peel off another layer. We go, didn't find anything. Doesn't mean to say there isn't anything, but we haven't found anything so far. How far do you go with this? So all of a sudden now you've got additional costs mounting up. The cost of due diligence. Now, when you do a share purchase, you've got increased legal fees as well, because on the legal fees, you have now the things which are known as warranties and indemnities. So that's the purchaser, your solicitor, now says, well, what is it that the vendor has said that you are relying upon? What are the warranties that they told you this is true? And if it isn't true, you can sue them. So what are the warranties? What do you want to be warranted? What do you want them to say that this is the truth? Right? And obviously tax will come into that as well. So the accountant now is working with the lawyers, so double trouble. Accountants and lawyers are spending money at the same time. And now you ask for indemnities. Well, what if we find later on that there is a problem? You, Mr. Vendor, seller, have to indemnify us as the purchaser. So now your solicitor, purchaser solicitors, now argy-bargy with the vendor's solicitor. And all the time the solicitors are arguing, guess what? You're paying. Right? You're paying for due diligence. I don't think we're expensive in doing that, and we're very practical about how many layers to take off of that onion, that analogous language. The solicitors argy-bargy back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Usually find solicitors don't really have a sense of humour about fees. So the costs are mounting up. Now, not only the costs mounting up, but what happens if actually the due diligence finds something? Are you still going to buy? You might well walk away. Well, you've still got the costs. What if during the lawyers' negotiations with each other, they reach impasse and you decide to walk away? Well, you've got the due diligence costs and you've got the lawyer's costs and the lawyer and the accountant working together on the indemnities and warranties. You've still got all those costs. So whilst there are savings, particularly on property people for the stamp duty, and that's the one that we're asked. Out of the 3 occasions I've been asked in the last 3 days, 2 of them were for property people. Big savings. Yes, I understand. Big costs too. Big costs. So don't only look at the plus side, look at the minus side as well. Okay. Now, obviously, the alternative to that is to do an asset sale. So that's the other version. Asset sale, share sale. If you don't do share sale, let's do the asset sale. So the asset sale now is, well, what assets do you want? And how much do you value them at? Well, that's fine. The accountant now comes in and says, we agree what we're going to do with this, and these are the valuations that we're going to put on it. And you're going to establish a valuation for the assets that you want to buy. So we need to detail all the assets. You then still have to do due diligence. Do they actually own the assets? Are there any legal encumbrances on the assets, etc.? But it is less than a share sale. That's it. This very short video, as short as I can make it for this very complicated subject. We have huge tomes of information that we can share with clients about this. I'm sorry, yes, you have to pay for them. But hopefully this short video helps you a little bit. Remember, this is not professional advice. This is a general explanation that I'm putting out onto our company YouTube channel. So if you need professional specific advice, come to us, speak to your consultant at Riverview Portfolio, property tax advice or expat tax advice, and we'll help you. Now, before I close, let me give you a story. And again, those of you that know me know I use analogies, but they also know I use stories a lot. I was doing one of these for a client, and back to my analogy of the onion, I peeled off some layers of the onion and I thought, no, can't find anything. Bad feeling about it. It doesn't feel good. Really not sure about this one. Gone back to the client and said, look, can't find anything, but I've got a bad feeling. Done hundreds of these, just got a bad feeling. Can I just spend a little bit longer on it, please? Yeah. Go on, Mark, spend a bit longer. So spend a bit longer. Didn't find it. Didn't find it. Back to the client, so look, I can't find it, but I've still got this really bad feeling. And of course, the client quite rightly says, look, I need to stop spending money now. Quite right, and I agree. Absolutely fine. I'm not promising I'll ever do this again, but I then tasked 2 of my staff to go looking. What we found, and it was on the 437th page of the Google. So, there's 10 results. I think it's 10 results or 20 results or so per page. It was on the 437th page, and my staff are just going through these and checking out everything. The guy's completely, the purchaser, I was working for the seller at this stage, the purchaser was completely not a bandit. Had arrest warrants outstanding for him in multiple countries. He was a fraudster. How was it buried on the 437th page? Dead easy. He created lots and lots and lots of websites, and they all said wonderful things about him. And where did I get my funny feeling? Well, if you can only ever hear good things about somebody, and there's never anybody moaning or bitching, that feels very strange, doesn't it? There's always someone who's got something negative to say. Surely must be somebody who's got something negative to say. And he's created this vast array of websites to bury down the bad news about him. And it took us quite a while to find it. I obviously went back to the client and said, how much would you pay if I said it took this many hours of one of my staff's time, 2 staff I put on this task? Would you pay that much money to find out the man was a fraudster? The answer was yes, of course he would. Showed him all the evidence, and obviously they ran away. So occasionally you might not find specific facts, but if your accountant has the battle scars, my analogy's language, battle scars, the t-shirts, the grey hair, I don't have grey hair. You do know I don't have grey hair. This is called wisdom highlights. Okay. Well, they've got that experience. Listen to them occasionally. They might be quite useful. I hope this video has been useful. If you need us, our contact details are at the end of this video. Thanks. Bye now.